The dust hadn't settled on the streets of Sonora, California, when Travis Coleman rode into town that scorching afternoon in July of 1872, his horse exhausted and his soul even more so. He had been riding for 3 days straight, running from a past that seemed determined to catch up with him no matter how many miles he put between himself and the life he once knew. And as he dismounted near the weathered wooden chapel at the edge of town, something compelled him to push open the door and step inside. The interior was cool and dim, a welcome relief from the relentless sun that had beaten down on him for days. His boots echoed on the wooden floor as he moved deeper into the small sanctuary, removing his hat out of respect despite not having set foot in a church for nearly 5 years. That was when he heard it, soft and trembling, a woman's voice breaking with emotion as she prayed aloud. Travis froze, his eyes adjusting to the shadows until he could make out her form in the front pew. She was small and delicate, her dark hair pulled back in a simple bun, her hands clasped so tightly that even from where he stood, he could see her knuckles had gone white. Her voice carried through the empty space, raw and desperate in a way that made his chest tighten. "Please," she whispered. "I do not know what else to do. I have nowhere to turn, no one to help me. My father is gone, my brother is gone, and I am so afraid. Please show me a way forward. Please send me someone who can help me understand what I am supposed to do now." Something about her words pierced through the armor Travis had built around his heart over the years. He found himself walking forward without conscious thought, his footsteps quiet on the worn floorboards. When he reached her pew, he hesitated for only a moment before lowering himself to kneel beside her, bowing his head and closing his eyes. He had not prayed in so long that the words felt foreign on his tongue, but they came nonetheless. "Lord," he said quietly, his voice rough from days of silence and dust, "I do not know this woman, but I can hear her pain. I can feel it like it is my own. If there is any goodness left in me, if there is any purpose to my life beyond running and hiding, please let me be of use to her. Please let me help her in whatever way she needs. And if I am being honest, which I suppose I should be in this place, please let me be worthy of her. Please let me find in her something worth staying for, something worth fighting for." The woman's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock. Travis could see them now, even in the dim light, deep brown and swimming with unshed tears. She was perhaps 22 or 23, with a face that would have been lovely if not for the exhaustion and fear etched into every feature. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "My name is Travis Coleman, madam," he replied, slowly rising from his knees and settling onto the pew beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "I apologize for intruding on your prayers. I heard your distress and I could not help myself." She studied him for a long moment, taking in his dusty clothes, his weathered face, the gun at his hip. He could see the wariness in her eyes, the way her body tensed as if preparing to flee. But something in his gaze must have reassured her, because after a moment she relaxed slightly. "My name is Abigail Brennan," she said softly, "and I do not know if you are an answer to my prayers or simply a coincidence, but I suppose I should thank you for your concern regardless." "What troubles you, Miss Brennan?" Travis asked, and then quickly added, "If you do not mind my asking." "I do not mean to pry, but if there is something I can do to help, I would like to try." Abigail looked down at her hands, still clasped tightly in her lap. "My father owned a small ranch about 5 miles outside of town," she began, her voice trembling. "He died 3 months ago, thrown from his horse. My older brother Thomas was supposed to take over the ranch, but he was killed 2 weeks ago in a fight at the saloon. It was senseless, stupid, an argument over a card game that got out of hand." Travis felt his jaw tighten. He had seen too many men die over nothing, too many families destroyed by violence and pride. "I am so sorry," he said, and meant it. Abigail nodded, a single tear finally escaping to roll down her cheek. "I am alone now. I have distant cousins back east, but I have not seen them since I was a child. The ranch is mine by right, but I do not know how to run it. The men who worked for my father have all left, looking for steadier employment. The bank is threatening to foreclose if I cannot make the next payment, which is due in 2 months. I have been coming here every day, praying for guidance, praying for help, praying for anything." Travis was quiet for a moment, considering his options. He had come to Sonora with no particular plan, no destination in mind beyond putting distance between himself and his past. He had money saved, enough to keep him going for a while, but no purpose. No reason to stay anywhere or keep moving. But looking at Abigail Brennan, at the desperate hope beginning to kindle in her eyes as she waited for him to speak, he felt something shift inside him. "I worked on a ranch in Montana for 6 years," he said slowly. "Before that, I grew up on my family's spread in Texas. I know cattle, horses, land management. I know how to fix fences and break broncos and negotiate with buyers. If you need help running your ranch, I can do that." Abigail's eyes widened. "You would help me, but you do not even know me. Why would you do that?" Travis considered the question carefully. "Honestly, Miss Brennan, I do not have a good answer for you. Maybe it is because I heard you praying and felt moved to help. Maybe it is because I have been running for a long time and I am tired. Maybe it is because when I knelt beside you and prayed, I asked God to let me be of use to you, and I figure I should follow through on that. Or maybe it is because in the 5 minutes I have known you, I have felt more alive than I have in years." The last part surprised him as much as it clearly surprised her. He had not meant to say it, had not even fully realized it was true until the words left his mouth. But there was something about this woman, something about her vulnerability combined with the strength it must have taken to keep going after losing everyone she loved, that called to something deep inside him. Abigail was staring at him, her cheeks flushed. "That is quite forward, Mr. Coleman." "Travis," he corrected gently. "And you are right, I apologize, I spoke out of turn." "No," she said quickly, shaking her head. "No, I did not mean it as a criticism. I just meant that it is unexpected. But then, this entire situation is unexpected. I came here today not really believing that my prayers would be answered, and then you appeared, kneeling beside me, praying for me. I do not know what to make of it." "You do not have to make anything of it right now," Travis assured her. "Why do we not start simple? Show me this ranch of yours. Let me take a look at what needs to be done. Then we can talk about whether you want my help and what that would look like." Abigail hesitated, clearly torn between hope and caution. "I do not have money to pay you," she admitted. "Not until the ranch starts producing income again, if it ever does." "Let us worry about payment later," Travis said. "Right now, I just want to help. Is that acceptable?" After a long moment, Abigail nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, that is acceptable. Thank you, Travis." The sound of his name on her lips sent an unexpected warmth through his chest. He stood and offered her his hand to help her up. She placed her small hand in his, and he felt a jolt at the contact, like lightning running up his arm. From the way her eyes widened, he thought she might have felt it too. They left the chapel together, stepping out into the bright afternoon sun. Travis's horse was still tied to the post outside, looking much more rested after the brief respite. Abigail had walked into town, she explained, so Travis offered to let her ride while he walked alongside. She accepted gratefully, and once she was settled in the saddle, they began the journey to her ranch. As they traveled, Abigail told him more about her father and brother, about growing up on the ranch, about her mother who had died when Abigail was just 16. Travis listened carefully, asking questions when appropriate, building a picture in his mind of the life she had known and the losses she had endured. In turn, he told her a carefully edited version of his own story, his childhood in Texas, his years in Montana, his decision to move on and see more of the country. He did not mention the real reason he had left Montana, the events that still haunted his dreams. That was a conversation for another time, if ever. The Brennan Ranch, when they finally reached it, was in worse shape than Travis had expected. The main house was sound enough, a sturdy wooden structure with a covered porch, but the barn was listing to one side, several fence posts had fallen, and the pastures were empty of livestock. There was a well-maintained vegetable garden behind the house, clearly Abigail's work, but otherwise the place had an air of abandonment. Travis helped Abigail down from his horse, his hands lingering at her waist perhaps a moment longer than necessary. She did not pull away immediately, and when their eyes met, he saw something in her gaze that made his heart beat faster. "It is not much," she said quietly, looking around at the property with obvious pain in her eyes. "It is a good piece of land," Travis countered. "The house is solid. The barn can be fixed, the fences can be repaired. What happened to your cattle? We had to sell most of them to pay for my father's funeral and to cover debts," Abigail explained. "There are still about 20 head up in the high pasture, but I have not been able to get up there to check on them in weeks. I am not confident enough on horseback to make the journey alone, and as I said, the hands all left." Travis nodded, his mind already working through what needed to be done and in what order. "First thing is to ride up and check on those cattle. Then we need to secure the barn before it collapses. After that, we can work on the fences and start thinking about how to rebuild the herd." "That sounds like months of work," Abigail said, sounding overwhelmed. "It is," Travis agreed. "But we do not have to do it all at once. We just have to start." Abigail looked at him, really looked at him for a long moment. "Why are you doing this?" she asked again. "Please, I need to understand." Men do not just appear out of nowhere and offer to save failing ranches for free. "What do you want from me?" Travis met her gaze steadily. "I want to help you," he said simply. "And maybe, if I am being completely honest, I want a reason to stay somewhere for a while. I want to feel like I am building something instead of running away from something. As for what I want from you specifically, well, I prayed for your love, Miss Brennan. I am not ashamed to admit that, but I am not asking for it or expecting it. I just want the chance to earn it if such a thing is possible." Abigail's breath caught, her cheeks flushing pink. "You are the strangest man I have ever met, Travis Coleman." "I will take that as a compliment," he replied with a small smile. Despite herself, Abigail smiled back, and Travis felt his chest tighten at the sight of it. Even exhausted and grief-stricken and worried about her future, she was beautiful when she smiled. "Come inside," Abigail said, gesturing toward the house. "You must be tired and hungry from your travels. Let me at least feed you before you start saving my ranch." The interior of the house was neat and clean, furnished simply but comfortably. Abigail moved around the kitchen with practiced ease, putting together a meal of bread, cheese, cold chicken, and canned peaches. Travis washed up at the pump outside and then joined her at the small kitchen table. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Abigail spoke again. "Where will you stay?" she asked. "If you are going to be working here, I mean." "There is a small bunkhouse out back, but it has not been used in weeks and probably needs cleaning." "The bunkhouse will be fine," Travis assured her. "I have slept in much worse places, believe me." "I will help you clean it after we eat," Abigail offered. They spent the rest of the afternoon making the bunkhouse habitable. It was a simple structure, Just one room with 4 bunks, a small stove and a table, but it was weatherproof and reasonably clean once they swept out the dust and changed the bedding. Travis brought his few possessions in from his saddlebags, and by evening he was settled. Abigail made dinner for both of them, a simple stew with vegetables from her garden and some of the preserved meat she had stored. They ate together at her kitchen table as the sun set outside the windows, casting long golden rays across the worn wooden floor. "Tell me about Montana," Abigail said as they ate. "What was it like up there?" Travis considered his words carefully. "Beautiful," he said finally. "Wild and beautiful. The winters were hard, but there was something pure about it, you know. Just men and cattle and endless sky. I learned a lot up there about ranching and about myself." "Why did you leave?" Abigail asked, then quickly added, "I am sorry, that is probably too personal." "No, it is a fair question," Travis said. He was quiet for a moment, deciding how much to tell her. "There was an incident," he said slowly. "A man died. It was not my fault, but I was involved and there were people who blamed me. It seemed better to move on than to stay and fight about it." Abigail was watching him closely. "Did you kill him?" she asked bluntly. Travis appreciated her directness. "No," he said firmly, "but I could not prove my innocence to everyone's satisfaction, and the man who did kill him was the son of a wealthy rancher. It was easier to let me take the blame than to accept that one of their own was a murderer." "That is terrible," Abigail said, her eyes flashing with indignation. "It is the way of the world sometimes," Travis replied with a shrug. "Rich men protect their own. Poor men move on. I chose to move on." "You are not poor," Abigail observed. "I have seen your horse, your saddle, your gun. Those are quality items. You dress like a working man, but you have money." Travis could not help but smile at her perceptiveness. "My family had land in Texas," he explained. "When they died, I sold it. I have been living off that money for years. So no, I am not poor, but I am not wealthy either. I have enough to get by, but not enough to buy a ranch of my own, if that is what you are wondering." "I was not wondering that," Abigail said, though her tone suggested she had been wondering exactly that. "I was just curious." They finished their meal and Abigail insisted on washing the dishes while Travis tended to his horse. By the time he returned to the house to say good night, it was fully dark, and Abigail was lighting lamps in the windows. "Thank you," she said softly as he stood in the doorway, hat in hand, "for everything today. I do not know if you are an answer to my prayers or just a kind stranger passing through, but either way I am grateful." "I am staying," Travis said firmly. "I want you to know that. I am not just passing through. I am here to help you save this ranch, and I am not leaving until we do." Abigail looked at him for a long moment, something unreadable in her eyes. "Good night, Travis," she finally said. "Good night, Abigail," he replied, and then headed back to the bunkhouse, his heart fuller than it had been in years. The next morning, Travis was up before dawn, years of ranch work having trained his body to wake with the sun. He washed up, dressed, and was standing on the porch of the bunkhouse watching the sky lighten when Abigail emerged from the main house, already dressed for the day in practical clothing. "You are up early," she called out to him. "Force of habit," Travis replied. "I figured we should ride up to check on those cattle today. The sooner we know what we are working with, the sooner we can make plans." Abigail nodded, looking nervous. "I will pack us some food for the journey," she said. They set out an hour later, after a quick breakfast, and after Travis had saddled both his horse and an older gelding from the barn that Abigail said had been her father's favorite. The ride up to the high pasture took almost 2 hours, following a winding trail that climbed steadily into the foothills. Travis watched Abigail carefully, noting her competence on horseback, despite her earlier protests. She was a better rider than she gave herself credit for. The cattle, when they found them, were in decent shape considering they had been largely unsupervised for weeks. Travis counted 19 head, a mix of cows and steers, all bearing the Brennan brand. They spent an hour checking the animals over, looking for signs of disease or injury, and were pleased to find them mostly healthy. "This is a good foundation," Travis told Abigail as they sat on a rocky outcrop eating the lunch she had packed. 19 head is not much, but it is something. "We can build from this." "How?" Abigail asked. "I do not have money to buy more cattle." "There are ways," Travis said thoughtfully. "We can look for wild cattle in the hills, mavericks that have escaped from other ranches or bred in the wild. We can offer to take in cattle from other ranchers on shares, caring for them in exchange for a percentage of the calves. We can trade labor for breeding stock. It will not be fast, but we can do it." Abigail was quiet for a moment, staring out at the small herd. "You really think we can save this place?" she asked softly. "I do," Travis said with conviction. "It will not be easy and it will take time, but yes, I think we can save it." She turned to look at him, her brown eyes searching his face. "Why do you care so much? You have known me for one day." Travis held her gaze. "I do not have a good explanation for that," he admitted. "All I know is that from the moment I saw you in that chapel, praying with everything you had, I felt something. A connection, maybe, a purpose. I have been drifting for a long time, Abigail." "Maybe I was drifting toward you." Abigail's breath hitched. "That is quite a thing to say." "I know," Travis replied. "And I do not want to make you uncomfortable. If you would prefer I keep my feelings to myself, I will do my best. But I told you yesterday that I prayed for your love and I meant it. I am not expecting anything from you, but I wanted you to know where I stand." Abigail looked away, her cheeks flushed. "I do not know what to say to that." "You do not have to say anything," Travis assured her. "Let us just focus on the ranch for now. Everything else can wait." They rode back down the mountain in thoughtful silence, arriving at the ranch in late afternoon. Travis immediately set to work on the barn, which was in danger of collapsing if not reinforced soon. Abigail helped where she could, holding boards steady while he hammered nails, fetching tools, offering suggestions. They worked well together, Travis noticed, falling into an easy rhythm. Over the following weeks, a routine developed. Travis would wake before dawn and start on whatever project was most urgent while Abigail prepared breakfast. They would eat together, discussing the day's plans, and then work side by side until midday. After a quick lunch, they would return to work until evening when Abigail would make dinner and they would eat together again, often talking long into the night about the ranch, their pasts, their hopes for the future. Travis found himself looking forward to these evening conversations more than anything else. Abigail was intelligent and well-read despite having spent most of her life on the ranch. Her father had valued education and had taught her himself, giving her access to books and newspapers, encouraging her curiosity about the world. She asked Travis endless questions about the places he had been, the things he had seen, and in turn she told him about her childhood, her dreams of one day traveling, but also her deep love for the land she had grown up on. As the days turned into weeks, Travis could feel himself falling deeper and deeper in love with her. It was not just her beauty, though he found her lovely beyond words. It was her strength, her determination, her kindness. It was the way she hummed while she worked in her garden. It was the way she laughed at his jokes, a bright sound that seemed to chase away all the darkness he had been carrying. It was the way she looked at him sometimes when she thought he was not paying attention, with a softness in her eyes that made his heart race. One evening, about 5 weeks after Travis had first arrived, they were sitting on the porch after dinner watching the sunset. The barn was stable now, the fences were repaired, and they had managed to round up 3 mavericks from the hills, bringing their herd up to 22 head. It was not much, but it was progress. "Travis," Abigail said softly, breaking the comfortable silence between them. "Yes," he replied, turning to look at her. She was staring down at her hands, twisting them nervously in her lap. "I need to tell you something," she said, "and I am afraid of how you will react." Travis felt a flutter of worry in his chest. "You can tell me anything," he assured her. Abigail took a deep breath. "I have been thinking a lot about what you said that first day, about praying for my love, about wanting a chance to earn it." She paused, finally looking up to meet his eyes. "The thing is, Travis, you already have it. You have had it for weeks now, if I am being honest. I have been trying to fight it, trying to tell myself that it is too soon, that I barely know you, that I am just grateful for your help. But that is not it. I am in love with you, Travis Coleman, and it terrifies me." Travis felt like all the air had been knocked out of his lungs. "Abigail," he breathed. "I know it is fast," she continued hurriedly. "I know we have only known each other for a little over a month. But my father used to say that when you know, you know. He said he knew he loved my mother within a week of meeting her. I did not understand that until now." Travis reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, and took her hand in his. "I am in love with you too," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I think I have been since that first day in the chapel. You do not terrify me, Abigail. You give me hope. You give me purpose. You give me a reason to be a better man than I have been." Abigail's eyes were shining with tears, but she was smiling. "What do we do now?" she asked. "Now," Travis said, moving closer to her, "I kiss you if that is all right." "Yes," Abigail whispered. "That is more than all right." Travis cupped her face gently in his hands, his thumbs brushing away the tears on her cheeks, and then he kissed her. It was soft and sweet at first, a gentle exploration, but it quickly deepened as weeks of longing and suppressed desire came pouring out. Abigail's hands came up to grip his shoulders, and Travis pulled her closer, wanting to eliminate every inch of space between them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Travis rested his forehead against hers. "I want to marry you," he said. "I know that is probably too fast as well, but I do not see any point in waiting when I know exactly what I want." Abigail laughed, a joyful sound that made Travis's heart soar. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, I will marry you." They kissed again and then again, until the sun had fully set and the stars were coming out overhead. Finally, reluctantly, Travis pulled back. "I should let you get some rest," he said, though he made no move to stand up. "Or you could stay a while longer," Abigail suggested, her eyes sparkling in the lamplight from inside the house. Travis smiled. "I like that idea much better." They sat on the porch talking and occasionally kissing until well past midnight. Travis told her more about his childhood in Texas, about his parents who had died of fever when he was 19, about his younger sister who had married and moved to San Francisco. Abigail told him about her mother's death, about how lost she had felt, about how her father and brother had tried so hard to fill the void, but nothing could completely erase the pain of losing her. "I wish they could have met you," Abigail said softly. "My father would have liked you. He valued hard work and honesty above everything else, and my brother, for all his faults, would have appreciated having another man around to help with the heavy work." "I wish I could have met them too," Travis said sincerely. "Any man who raised a daughter like you must have been exceptional." When Travis finally returned to the bunkhouse in the early hours of the morning, he felt lighter than he had in years. He lay in his bunk staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the evening, every word Abigail had said, every kiss they had shared. He could hardly believe this was his life now, that he had found love in the last place he had expected it. The next morning, over breakfast, they discussed their plans. Travis wanted to marry Abigail as soon as possible, but she insisted they wait at least a few weeks to give themselves time to prepare and to inform what few friends and family they had. "There is a preacher in town who knew my father," Abigail said. "Reverend Matthews. He would be honored to perform the ceremony, I am sure, and there are a few women in town, friends of my mother's, who should be invited." "Whatever you want," Travis said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "As long as at the end of it you are my wife, I do not care about the details." Abigail squeezed his hand, smiling. "We should also think about the legal aspects," she said, her tone becoming more serious. "This ranch is mine, but I want it to be ours. I want us to be true partners in this, Travis. Equal partners." "Are you sure?" Travis asked. "This is your family's land, Abigail, your legacy." "And I want it to be our family's land," Abigail replied firmly. "Our legacy to pass on to our children someday. I trust you, Travis, completely." Travis felt his throat tighten with emotion. "I promise I will never give you reason to doubt that trust," he said. "I will spend the rest of my life proving that I am worthy of it." They rode into Sonora the next day to speak with Reverend Matthews, and to visit the lawyer to begin drawing up the papers that would make Travis a legal co-owner of the ranch upon their marriage. The Reverend was a kindly older man with white hair and sharp blue eyes who listened to their story with obvious interest. "Miss Brennan, I must ask," he said carefully after they had explained their situation. "You have only known Mr. Coleman for a short time. Are you certain about this decision? I do not mean to question your judgment, but as someone who cared deeply for your father, I feel obligated to ensure you have thought this through." Abigail did not hesitate. "I am certain, Reverend Matthews. I know it seems fast, but sometimes life moves quickly. My father always said that you have to seize opportunities when they arise, and that is what I am doing. Travis has proven himself to be a good and honorable man. He has worked tirelessly to help me save my family's ranch, asking for nothing in return. He has been respectful and kind and honest with me. I love him, and I want to marry him." Reverend Matthews turned his attention to Travis. "And you, Mr. Coleman? What are your intentions toward Miss Brennan?" "My intentions are to love her and care for her for the rest of my life," Travis said without hesitation. "To build a life with her, to be a partner to her in every sense of the word. She is the best thing that has ever happened to me, Reverend, and I do not take that lightly." The Reverend studied them both for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well. I will perform the ceremony. Shall we say 3 weeks from today? That should give you time to prepare." 3 weeks is perfect," Abigail agreed, beaming. They left the church in high spirits and went to visit the lawyer, a Mr. Henderson who had handled her father's affairs. He drew up the necessary papers and promised they would be ready to sign on the day of the wedding. "Congratulations, Miss Brennan," Mr. Henderson said as they prepared to leave. "Your father would be happy to see you taking charge of your life this way." "Thank you," Abigail replied. "I hope you are right." The 3 weeks leading up to the wedding passed in a blur of activity. Travis continued working on the ranch, but now with an extra spring in his step, knowing that soon it would officially be his home too. Abigail divided her time between ranch work and preparing for the ceremony, sewing a new dress, baking, and making sure the house was spotless. Travis rode into town one afternoon to purchase a ring. He found a simple gold band at the general store, and though it was not fancy, he knew Abigail would prefer something practical and understated anyway. He also bought himself a new shirt and had his one good suit cleaned and pressed. The night before the wedding, following tradition, Travis stayed in town at the small hotel rather than at the ranch. He could barely sleep. his mind racing with thoughts of the next day, of the life he and Abigail would build together. The wedding itself was a simple but beautiful affair. It took place in the same chapel where Travis had first found Abigail praying, which seemed fitting. About 20 people attended, mostly women from town who had known Abigail's mother and wanted to show their support, along with a few local ranchers and businessmen who had respected her father. But Travis only had eyes for Abigail. She wore a dress of pale blue cotton that she had sewn herself, with her dark hair pinned up and decorated with small white flowers. She was so beautiful that when Travis first saw her walking down the aisle toward him, he felt tears prick at his eyes. The ceremony was short but meaningful. They recited their vows, Travis's voice strong and steady despite his nervousness, Abigail's soft but sure. When Reverend Matthews pronounced them husband and wife, Travis kissed Abigail with all the love and promise he felt in his heart, and the small congregation erupted in applause. They held a modest reception at the ranch afterward, with food and drink and even some music when one of the attendees produced a fiddle. Travis danced with his new wife, holding her close and marveling at the fact that she was truly his now, that they belonged to each other. Happy. He murmured into her ear as they swayed together. Happier than I ever thought possible, Abigail replied, pulling back to look up at him. Thank you, Travis, for everything, for praying with me that day, for staying, for loving me. You do not have to thank me for loving you, Travis said, brushing a kiss against her forehead. That is the easiest thing I have ever done. The guests left as evening approached, and finally Travis and Abigail were alone. They stood on the porch of the house, watching the sunset, much as they had the night they confessed their feelings for each other. I suppose this is really our home now, Abigail said softly. Not just mine, but ours. Our home, Travis repeated, liking the sound of it. Our ranch, our life. Abigail turned to him, her eyes dark and warm in the fading light. Take me inside, husband, she said, a slight tremor in her voice that betrayed her nervousness. Travis took her hand gently. Are you nervous? He asked. A little, she admitted. Are you? Terrified, Travis confessed with a small laugh. But in a good way. They went inside together, and Travis carefully closed and locked the door behind them. He turned to find Abigail watching him, her chest rising and falling rapidly. We can take this as slow as you need, Travis said, crossing to her and taking both her hands in his. There is no rush. I do not want to go slow, Abigail said, her voice gaining strength. I want you, Travis. I have wanted you for weeks now. Travis pulled her close and kissed her deeply, pouring all his love and desire into it. Abigail responded eagerly, her hands coming up to tangle in his hair. They made their way to the bedroom, learning each other, exploring and discovering. And when they finally came together as husband and wife, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the bed, Abigail's head resting on Travis's chest as he ran his fingers through her hair. I love you, Abigail whispered. I know I have said it before, but I need you to know how much I mean it. You saved me, Travis, not just the ranch, but me. You saved me too, Travis replied, his voice thick with emotion. I was lost when I came here. I had no purpose, no direction. You gave me both. You gave me everything. They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, Travis slept peacefully, with no nightmares, no regrets, just contentment. The months following their marriage were full of hard work, but also deep happiness. Travis and Abigail worked side by side every day, gradually bringing the ranch back to life. They managed to acquire more cattle through the methods Travis had suggested, and by the time winter set in, they had a herd of 35 head, with more expected in the spring. They also made improvements to the property, fixing up the house, building a new chicken coop, planting additional crops in the garden. Travis proved to be skilled at carpentry, and he built Abigail a new bookshelf for the collection of volumes she had inherited from her father. He also built them a sturdy new bed to replace the old one, and Abigail made a quilt for it from scraps of fabric she had saved over the years. Their marriage was everything Travis had hoped for and more. They worked well together, complementing each other's strengths and compensating for each other's weaknesses. Abigail had a good head for figures and took over managing the ranch's finances, while Travis handled most of the physical labor and dealt with buyers and other ranchers. But beyond the practical partnership, there was also deep love and affection between them. Travis found excuses to touch Abigail throughout the day, a hand on her back as he passed her, a kiss on her forehead when she was concentrating on her ledgers. Abigail would often stop what she was doing to simply watch Travis work, admiring the way his muscles moved beneath his shirt, the focused expression on his face. Their nights were filled with passion and intimacy, but also with conversation and laughter. They would lie in bed talking about their days, their plans, their dreams. Travis told Abigail stories from his travels, and Abigail read to Travis from her favorite books. It was a simple life, but it was theirs and they cherished it. Winter brought its challenges. The work slowed down due to snow and cold, but there were still animals to feed and care for, fences to maintain, firewood to chop. Travis and Abigail spent more time indoors, using the opportunity to plan for the spring and to simply enjoy each other's company. It was during this quiet winter that Abigail discovered she was pregnant. She had suspected for a few weeks but had not wanted to say anything until she was certain. When she finally told Travis, he was overjoyed. "A baby," he breathed, his hand moving to rest gently on her still flat stomach. "Abigail, we are going to have a baby." "Are you happy?" she asked, though she could see the answer clearly on his face. "Happy does not even begin to cover it," Travis replied, pulling her into a tight embrace. "You have given me so much already, and now this. I do not know what I did to deserve you, but I thank God every day that I found you in that chapel." "That was one of the strangest days of my life," Abigail said with a laugh. "I was at my lowest point, praying for a miracle, and then this dusty cowboy walked in and knelt beside me. I thought I was hallucinating at first. A dusty cowboy who was fool enough to fall in love with you at first sight," Travis added, kissing her forehead. "The best kind of fool," Abigail murmured, reaching up to kiss him properly. The pregnancy progressed well, though Abigail was often tired and occasionally nauseous. Travis took over even more of the ranch work, insisting she rest as much as possible. Abigail protested at first, unused to being idle, but she eventually accepted that she needed to take care of herself and the baby. Spring brought new life to the ranch in more ways than one. Several of their cows gave birth, adding healthy calves to their growing herd. The garden, which they had prepared in the fall, was ready for planting, and they spent several days getting seeds in the ground. Travis also built a small addition onto the house, creating a nursery for the baby who would arrive in late summer. As Abigail's pregnancy advanced, Travis found himself becoming more and more protective of her. He worried constantly, though he tried not to show it too much. He had seen enough of life to know that childbirth was dangerous, and the thought of losing Abigail terrified him. Abigail, sensing his worry, would often reassure him. "I am strong," she would say, "and women in my family have always had easy births. My mother had 3 children with no complications. Try not to worry so much." "I will try," Travis would promise, though they both knew he would worry anyway. In early August, 3 weeks before the baby was due, Travis rode into town to fetch the doctor. a woman named Dr. Sarah Mitchell, who had recently moved to Sonora from San Francisco. She was young for a doctor, perhaps 30, but she came highly recommended, and Travis wanted to make sure she was prepared when Abigail's time came. Dr. Mitchell agreed to ride out to the ranch to examine Abigail and to familiarize herself with the layout in case she needed to come quickly. She spent an hour with Abigail, checking her over thoroughly, and then pronounced both mother and baby healthy. "Everything looks excellent, Mrs. Coleman," Dr. Mitchell said as they sat at the kitchen table afterward, drinking tea. "Your husband is right to be cautious, but I do not anticipate any problems. You are young and healthy, and the baby seems to be in a good position." "Thank you, doctor," Abigail said, visibly relieved. "When the time comes, send for me immediately," Dr. Mitchell instructed Travis. "Even if it is the middle of the night, I would rather come out here for a false alarm than arrive too late to help if there are complications." "I will," Travis promised. "Thank you for coming out here." "It is my job," Dr. Mitchell replied with a smile, "and besides, I enjoy getting out of town. The scenery out here is beautiful." 2 weeks later, on a hot August morning, Abigail woke Travis before dawn with a gentle shake. "Travis," she said, her voice calm but urgent, "it is time. The baby is coming." Travis was out of bed and dressed in record time, his heart pounding. "Are you all right? Are you in pain?" "I am fine," Abigail assured him. "The pains just started about an hour ago. They are still far apart, but I thought we should send for the doctor now so she has time to get here." Travis saddled his horse in the pre-dawn darkness and rode to town as fast as the animal could carry him. He pounded on Dr. Mitchell's door until she appeared, already half-dressed, clearly having expected this. "Mrs. Coleman?" she asked. "Yes," Travis confirmed, trying to catch his breath. "She says the pain started about an hour ago." "Good. We have time then," Dr. Mitchell said calmly. "Give me 5 minutes to gather my things and I will ride back with you." The ride back to the ranch felt like it took forever, though in reality it was less than an hour. Travis kept urging his horse faster, though Dr. Mitchell cautioned him against wearing the animals out. When they arrived, they found Abigail in the bedroom, still calm but clearly uncomfortable. The pains were coming more frequently now, she told Dr. Mitchell. "About every 10 minutes, doctor." Mitchell shooed Travis out of the room despite his protests. "This is women's work, Mr. Coleman," she said firmly. "You will just be in the way. Go make yourself useful elsewhere." Travis spent the most agonizing hours of his life pacing the kitchen, listening to the sounds coming from the bedroom. He heard Abigail cry out a few times, and each time his heart clenched with the desire to be with her, to help her somehow. But Dr. Mitchell had been clear, and he trusted her expertise. Finally, as the afternoon sun was beginning to slant through the windows, he heard a new sound, the thin, wailing cry of a newborn baby. Travis's knees nearly buckled with relief, and he had to grab the edge of the table to steady himself. A moment later, Dr. Mitchell emerged from the bedroom, a tired but satisfied smile on her face. "Congratulations, Mr. Coleman," she said. "You have a son. Both mother and baby are healthy and doing well." "A son," Travis repeated, the words not quite registering. "I have a son. Can I see them?" "Yes, go ahead," Dr. Mitchell said, stepping aside. Travis entered the bedroom on shaking legs. Abigail was propped up in bed, looking exhausted but radiant, cradling a tiny bundle wrapped in a blanket. When she looked up at him, her eyes were shining with tears and joy. "Come meet your son," she said softly. Travis crossed to the bed and sat down carefully on the edge, staring in wonder at the tiny face peeking out from the blanket. The baby had stopped crying and was now looking around with unfocused eyes, his little mouth moving as if trying to figure out this strange new world he had been born into. "He is perfect," Travis whispered, reaching out a tentative finger to touch the baby's impossibly small hand. To his amazement, the tiny fingers wrapped around his, gripping with surprising strength. "He is absolutely perfect, Abigail. What should we name him?" Abigail asked. "We never quite decided." Travis thought for a moment. "What about Thomas?" he suggested. "After your brother. And maybe James for a middle name after my father." Abigail's eyes filled with fresh tears. "Thomas James Coleman," she said, trying out the name. "I love it. My brother would have been so honored." "Thomas James Coleman it is, then," Travis confirmed, leaning over to kiss his wife gently. "Thank you, Abigail. Thank you for him, for everything. I love you so much." "I love you too," Abigail replied. "Now, do you want to hold your son?" Travis took the baby carefully, terrified he would do something wrong, but the moment Thomas was in his arms, something clicked into place. This was his son. His and Abigail's. A new life they had created together, a symbol of their love. Dr. Mitchell stayed at the ranch for the rest of the day and overnight, making sure both Abigail and the baby were stable. In the morning, satisfied that everything was proceeding normally, she prepared to return to town. "You did wonderfully, Mrs. Coleman," she told Abigail as she packed her medical bag. "Thomas is a healthy, strong baby. Just make sure you rest and recover. No working for at least 2 weeks, understand?" "I understand," Abigail promised, though Travis could tell she was already itching to get back to her usual routine. "I will hold her to that," Travis assured the doctor. "See that you do," Dr. Mitchell replied with a smile. "Congratulations to both of you. You have a beautiful family." After the doctor left, Travis and Abigail settled into their new life as parents. The first few weeks were exhausting, with Thomas waking every few hours to feed and requiring near constant care. But they were also magical. Travis found himself utterly entranced by his son, spending hours just watching him sleep, marveling at every tiny movement and sound. Abigail was a natural mother, handling the challenges with grace and patience. She nursed Thomas, changed him, soothed him when he cried, all while somehow still managing to keep the household running. Travis took over all the outside work and helped as much as he could inside, but he was constantly amazed by Abigail's ability to balance everything. As the weeks turned into months, Thomas grew and changed, becoming more alert and responsive. He started smiling at around 6 weeks, and the first time Travis made him laugh, at 3 months, he thought his heart would burst with joy. The ranch continued to prosper as well. Their herd had grown to nearly 50 head, and they were able to make the payment to the bank with money to spare. Travis hired 2 ranch hands to help with the increased workload, 2 young men named Henry and Sam who were hard workers and respectful of both Travis and Abigail. Life fell into a comfortable rhythm. Travis and Abigail would wake early, and while Abigail fed and tended to Thomas, Travis would start the day's work. They would have breakfast as a family, and then Travis would head out to work with the hands while Abigail managed the house and the baby. Evenings were family time, with Travis playing with Thomas while Abigail prepared dinner, and then they would eat together and spend the evening relaxing on the porch or inside by the fire, depending on the weather. As Thomas's first birthday approached, Abigail discovered she was pregnant again. This time the news was less surprising but no less joyful. Travis was thrilled at the thought of Thomas having a sibling close in age. "I always wished I had more siblings," he told Abigail as they lay in bed discussing the news. "My sister was wonderful, but there was such an age gap between us that we were never really playmates. I think it will be good for Thomas to have someone close to his own age." "I agree," Abigail said, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. "Though I confess I am a bit nervous about managing 2 little ones so close together." "We will figure it out," Travis assured her, kissing her softly. "We make a good team, remember? This second pregnancy was more difficult than the first." Abigail was often exhausted, trying to keep up with an active toddler while her body worked to grow another baby. Travis did everything he could to help, taking over more of the household chores and spending his evenings entertaining Thomas so Abigail could rest. The baby, a daughter they named Alice Marie, arrived on a chilly March evening. The birth was faster and easier than Thomas's had been, and Dr. Mitchell pronounced both mother and baby healthy within an hour of the delivery. Travis fell in love with his daughter immediately. She was tiny and perfect, with wisps of dark hair like her mother's and eyes that he swore were already the same rich brown. Thomas, now 15 months old, was fascinated by his new sister, constantly wanting to touch her and see her, though he had to be reminded frequently to be gentle. Life with 2 children was chaotic but wonderful. The house was never quiet, never still, always full of noise and activity and laughter. Travis and Abigail were exhausted most of the time, but they were also happier than they had ever been. The ranch continued to thrive. With the 2 hired hands helping, they were able to expand their operations, increasing their herd and improving their facilities. They built a proper stable, expanded the barn again, and even added a small corral for breaking horses, which Travis discovered he had a talent for. By the time Thomas was 4 and Alice was 3, the Brennan Coleman Ranch, as it had come to be known, was one of the most successful small operations in the area. They had paid off the bank completely and even had savings set aside for emergencies or future expansion. But more important than the ranch's success was the family they had built. Travis and Abigail's love had only deepened over the years, weathering the challenges and stresses of parenthood and ranch life. They still made time for each other, stealing moments alone when they could, never taking for granted the miracle of having found each other. On a warm evening in June of 1878, 6 years after Travis had first walked into that chapel and knelt beside a praying woman, the family sat together on the porch watching the sunset. Thomas was playing with a wooden horse Travis had carved for him, and Alice was in Abigail's lap, drowsy and ready for bed. Travis sat beside his wife, his arm around her shoulders, feeling a deep sense of contentment. "You ever think about that day?" Abigail asked softly. "The day we met?" "All the time," Travis admitted. "I think about how lost I was, how aimless, and I think about how I almost did not go into that chapel at all. I almost just kept riding through town." "I am glad you did not," Abigail said, leaning her head against his shoulder. "I prayed for help that day, and God sent me you, the best answer to prayer I could have imagined." "I prayed for your love," Travis reminded her. "And I got so much more than I asked for. I got you this life, our children. I got a home and a purpose and a reason to wake up every morning grateful to be alive." "We got lucky," Abigail said, "both of us." "No," Travis disagreed gently. "Luck is random, fleeting. What we have is more than luck. It is love, commitment, partnership. We worked for this, Abigail. We built this together." Abigail smiled and lifted her head to kiss him softly. "You are right," she agreed. "We did build this, and I cannot wait to see what we build next." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Travis looked at his family and felt a profound sense of peace. He had been a man without direction, running from his past and uncertain of his future. But kneeling beside a praying woman in a small chapel had changed everything. It had given him a purpose, a home, and a love that had transformed his entire life. The years continued to pass in a blur of activity and growth. Thomas grew into a capable young man who loved working on the ranch with his father. learning everything Travis could teach him about cattle, horses, and the land. Alice, meanwhile, proved to have her mother's sharp mind for figures and took over helping Abigail with the ranch's business affairs as soon as she was old enough. In 1882, when Thomas was 10 and Alice was 9, Abigail gave birth to another child, a son they named William Travis Coleman. His arrival was unexpected but joyfully received, and having a baby in the house again reminded Travis and Abigail of those early days of their marriage. The ranch continued to expand and prosper. They acquired more land, built more structures, increased their herd to over 200 head. Travis earned a reputation as one of the most honest and reliable ranchers in the region, and people came from all over to buy his cattle and horses. But despite their success and prosperity, Travis and Abigail never forgot where they had started. Every Sunday, they attended services at the chapel where they had met, and often they would linger afterward, sitting in the same pew where Abigail had once prayed in desperation and where Travis had knelt beside her. "You remember what you prayed for that day?" Abigail asked him once many years later as they sat together in that familiar place. "I prayed for your love," Travis replied without hesitation, "and for the chance to be worthy of you." "You have always been worthy," Abigail said firmly, "from the very first moment. You just needed to believe it yourself." Travis took her hand, noting how the years had left their marks on both of them. Abigail's dark hair now held threads of silver, and his own face showed the lines and wrinkles of a life spent working in the sun. But when he looked at her, he still saw the beautiful, desperate young woman who had captured his heart all those years ago. "I love you," he said simply. "I have loved you from the moment I saw you, and I will love you until my last breath and beyond." "And I love you," Abigail replied, tears shining in her eyes. "You were my answered prayer, Travis. You still are." They sat together in the quiet chapel, hands clasped, hearts full, grateful for the journey that had brought them together and for the life they had built. It had not always been easy. There had been hard times, difficult years, challenges that had tested their strength and resolve. But they had faced everything together, and their love had only grown stronger. As they finally rose to leave, Travis paused at the door and looked back at the pew where their story had begun. He thought about the desperate, drifting man he had been, and the content, fulfilled man he had become. All because he had walked through a chapel door and listened to a woman's prayer. "Thank you," he whispered, not entirely sure who he was thanking but needing to say it anyway. Abigail heard him and squeezed his hand. "Come on," she said softly. "Let us go home." Home. The word filled Travis with warmth. Home was not just a place. It was Abigail and their children and the life they had created together. It was everything he had never known he needed until he found it. They rode back to the ranch together in comfortable silence, the late afternoon sun warm on their faces. When they arrived, they found their children waiting for them. Thomas was now a young man of 21, already courting a nice young woman from town. Alice was 20, beautiful and smart and independent. And William, at 13, was at that awkward age between boyhood and manhood, all gangly limbs and sudden growth spurts. The family gathered for dinner that evening, as they did most evenings, around the large table Travis had built when the children were small. The conversation flowed easily, full of laughter and teasing and love. They talked about the ranch, about Thomas's courtship, about Alice's plans to perhaps open a small school on the property for the children of ranch workers, about William's progress in his studies. After dinner, as the children cleaned up and Abigail supervised, Travis stepped out onto the porch. He stood there breathing in the cool evening air, looking out at the land that was his, earned through hard work and dedication. But more than the land, more than the success. What filled him with pride and joy was the family inside the house behind him. Abigail joined him after a few minutes, slipping her hand into his as naturally as breathing. They stood together watching the stars come out as they had done countless times over the years. "You have any regrets?" Abigail asked suddenly. Travis considered the question carefully. "No," he said finally. "Not about anything that matters. I regret the circumstances that drove me away from Montana, but if they had not happened, I never would have come here. I never would have found you. So even my mistakes and misfortunes led me to the right place. I used to regret not traveling more, not seeing more of the world," Abigail admitted. "But I realized that I built my world right here. Everything and everyone I love is here. What more could I need?" "Nothing," Travis agreed. "We have everything we need." As they stood together under the stars, Travis thought back to that day in the chapel, to the prayer he had spoken kneeling beside a desperate stranger. He had asked for her love, and he had received it. But he had also received so much more: a partner, a family, a home, a purpose. He had received a second chance at life, an opportunity to be the man he had always wanted to be. The years continued their steady march forward. Thomas married his sweetheart in 1887, and they built a house on the far side of the property, remaining close to the family while establishing their own life. Alice married 2 years later, choosing a young lawyer from town who moved to the ranch rather than asking Alice to leave. And William, after finishing his education, proved to have a talent for horse breeding and began developing that aspect of the ranch's business. Travis and Abigail watched their children grow and establish their own families with pride and joy. They became grandparents first in 1888, when Thomas's wife gave birth to a daughter. More grandchildren followed over the years, filling the ranch with new life and energy. As Travis entered his 50s and then his 60s, he began to slow down, though he never fully retired from ranch work. He could not imagine a day without being out on the land, checking on the cattle, repairing fences, doing the work that had defined his adult life. But he was content now to let his children take on more of the responsibility, to step back and enjoy the fruits of what he and Abigail had built together. On their 25th wedding anniversary in 1897, the entire family gathered for a celebration. Children and grandchildren filled the house and spilled out onto the porch and into the yard. There was food and music and dancing and laughter. It was everything Travis could have hoped for. Late in the evening, after most of the younger children had been put to bed, and the adults were sitting around talking quietly, Thomas stood up and called for everyone's attention. "I wanted to take a moment to thank my parents," he said, his voice thick with emotion. 25 years ago, my mother was facing an impossible situation. She had lost her father and her brother, and she was in danger of losing everything they had worked for. She went to the chapel to pray, not knowing what else to do. And my father, a stranger passing through town, heard her prayer and decided to help. He could have kept riding. He could have minded his own business. But he did not. He stayed and he worked and he fell in love with my mother, and together they built something remarkable. Travis felt Abigail's hand squeeze his, and he looked over to see tears running down her cheeks. "This ranch, this family, everything we have and everything we are exists because of their love and dedication," Thomas continued. "Because they were willing to work hard and sacrifice and never give up, even when things were difficult. So I want to propose a toast to Travis and Abigail Coleman, the best parents and the best partners anyone could ask for." Everyone raised their glasses, echoing the toast. Travis stood, pulling Abigail up with him, and wrapped his arms around her. "Thank you," he whispered into her hair. Thank you for saying yes all those years ago. Thank you for building this life with me. Thank you for staying, Abigail whispered back. Thank you for seeing me when I was at my lowest and choosing to help anyway. Thank you for loving me. They kissed, not caring that their children and grandchildren were watching, and the room erupted in applause and cheers. The party continued late into the night, but eventually everyone drifted off to bed. Travis and Abigail were the last ones awake, sitting together on the porch in the rocking chairs Travis had built for their 10th anniversary. 25 years, Abigail mused. It feels like a lifetime and like yesterday all at once. I know what you mean, Travis agreed. Sometimes I look at you and I still see that frightened young woman in the chapel. Other times I look at you and I see every year we have spent together written on your face, and I love those years as much as I love you. We have been so lucky, Abigail said. So incredibly lucky. Blessed, Travis corrected gently. We have been blessed, Abigail nodded. Yes, blessed. I prayed for help, and God sent me exactly what I needed. Not just help with the ranch, but a partner for life. A love that has sustained me through everything. I prayed for your love, Travis reminded her, as he had so many times over the years. And I got so much more than I asked for. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, rocking gently, listening to the night sounds of the ranch. An owl hooted in the distance. Cattle lowed softly in their pasture. A gentle breeze rustled through the trees. I want you to know something, Abigail said eventually. If I could go back to that day in the chapel, knowing everything that would happen, all the hard work and challenges and difficult times, I would do it all again in a heartbeat. Because you are worth it. This life is worth it. I would too, Travis said without hesitation. Every single moment, good and bad, has led us here. And here is exactly where I want to be. The years continued to pass, bringing both joys and sorrows. They lost friends to age and illness. They faced droughts and harsh winters and market fluctuations that tested the ranch's stability. But through it all, Travis and Abigail remained steadfast, their love a constant in an ever-changing world. On a warm spring morning in 1905, Travis woke to find himself alone in bed, which was unusual. He rose and dressed, making his way through the quiet house in search of Abigail. He found her in the kitchen, standing at the window looking out at the land, a cup of coffee in her hands. "Good morning," he said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "Good morning," she replied, leaning back against him. "I was just thinking about how much has changed since that day in the chapel, and how much has stayed the same." "What has stayed the same?" Travis asked. "This," Abigail said, turning in his arms to face him. "Us, our love, that has never changed, never wavered. Everything else may have shifted and evolved, but this has been constant." Travis cupped her face in his hands, noting the deep lines around her eyes, the silver that had completely overtaken the dark of her hair, the slight tremor in her hands that came with age. She was in her mid-50s now, and he was approaching 65. They were no longer young, but their love felt as fresh and new as it had that first day. "I love you, Abigail Coleman," he said. "I have loved you for 33 years, and I will love you for however many more years we have." "And I love you," she replied. "My answered prayer, my partner, my love." They kissed soft and sweet, a kiss that held 3 decades of devotion and commitment. When they finally pulled apart, Travis rested his forehead against hers. "Let us go for a ride," he suggested. "Just the two of us. Like we used to do when the children were small and we would steal moments alone." Abigail smiled. "I would like that." They saddled 2 horses and rode out across the ranch, not with any particular destination in mind, just enjoying being together. They rode to the high pasture where Travis had first checked on Abigail's cattle all those years ago. They rode past the spot where they had built Thomas and his wife's house. They rode through the orchards they had planted and the fields they had cultivated. Finally, they rode to the chapel in Sonora. They had not been there in several weeks, and Travis felt drawn to the place where their story had begun. Inside, the chapel was cool and quiet, unchanged by the passage of time. They walked to the front pew, the same one where Abigail had knelt in desperate prayer so long ago, and sat down together. "You remember what you were thinking that day?" Travis asked. "The day I found you here." "I remember feeling hopeless," Abigail said quietly. "Like I had come to the end of myself. I did not see any way forward. I was praying for a miracle, but I did not really believe one would come. And then you walked in." "I remember feeling compelled to come in here," Travis said, "like something was pulling me through that door. And then I heard your voice, heard your pain, and I could not walk away." "What made you stay?" Abigail asked. "Really, I have never fully understood that. You could have offered advice and then moved on, but you stayed." Travis was quiet for a long moment, considering how to put into words something he had always felt more than understood. "I think I recognized you," he said finally. "Not in a literal sense, obviously, but in a deeper way, like my soul recognized yours. Like I had been searching for you without knowing it, and when I found you, everything clicked into place. Does that make sense?" "It makes perfect sense," Abigail said, tears welling in her eyes, "because I felt the same way. From the moment you knelt beside me and started praying, I felt like I knew you, like I had been waiting for you." They sat together in the quiet chapel, hands clasped, hearts full, thinking about the journey they had been on together. It had been a good life, a full life, a life worth living. "Whatever happens," Travis said softly, "however much time we have left together, I want you to know that you have made me happier than I ever thought possible. You gave me a home, a family, a purpose. You gave me everything." "We gave each other everything," Abigail corrected. "This was never just you helping me, Travis. We built this life together as equals, as partners." "You are right," Travis agreed. "We did it together." They left the chapel hand in hand, stepping out into the bright afternoon sun. The ride back to the ranch was peaceful and companionable. Two people who had spent more than 3 decades learning each other's rhythms and moods so well that words were often unnecessary. When they arrived home, they found several of their grandchildren playing in the yard, supervised by Alice. The children ran to greet them, excited and chattering about their day. Travis lifted the youngest, a girl of 4 named Emma, into his arms and listened to her enthusiastic story about a butterfly she had caught and then released. That evening, the family gathered for dinner as they often did. The house was full of noise and life and laughter. Travis sat at the head of the table, Abigail at his side, their children and grandchildren filling the other seats. He looked around at all these faces, these people who existed because he had walked into a chapel one day and decided to stay, and felt overwhelming gratitude. After dinner, as was his habit, Travis walked out to check on the animals one last time before bed. Abigail joined him, as she often did, and they walked together through the twilight. "I have been thinking," Abigail said as they stood at the fence watching the horses in the pasture, "about legacy, about what we leave behind." "And what do you think our legacy is?" Travis asked. "This," Abigail said, gesturing to encompass the ranch, the animals, the land. "But more than that, our children, our grandchildren, the life and the love we have built, and that will continue after we are gone." "That is a good legacy," Travis agreed. "Better than I ever dreamed of having." "Do you have any regrets?" Abigail asked, repeating a question she had asked before over the years. "None," Travis said firmly. "Not one single regret. Everything I have done, every choice I have made since the day I met you has led to this moment. And this moment is perfect." Abigail leaned against him, and they stood together watching the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. They had stood like this thousands of times over the years, but it never got old. It was their time, their moment of peace and connection at the end of each day. "I love you," Abigail whispered. "And I love you," Travis replied. "Forever and always." The years continued to unfold, bringing with them the natural progression of life. More grandchildren were born and eventually even great-grandchildren. The ranch continued to operate successfully under the management of their children, though Travis and Abigail remained involved and consulted for many years. Travis's health began to decline when he was in his early 70s, his body finally giving in to decades of hard physical labor. He could no longer ride for hours or do heavy work, but he remained sharp mentally and still spent his days on the porch or moving around the ranch house, offering advice and enjoying his family. Abigail aged more gracefully, remaining spry and active well into her 60s, though she too eventually slowed down. They spent more and more time together, just the two of them, reminiscing about their years together and marveling at the life they had built. On a quiet evening in the autumn of 1910, Travis and Abigail sat together on the porch as they had done countless times before. Travis was 78 years old now. Abigail was 60. He had been feeling particularly tired lately, and Abigail had been fussing over him more than usual, though he pretended to be annoyed by it. "You remember," Travis said suddenly, "that first night after we were married, when we lay in bed and I told you that you had saved me?" "I remember," Abigail said softly, taking his hand. "I want you to know that every day since then has only confirmed that truth," Travis said, his voice growing thick with emotion. "You did save me, Abigail, in every way a person can be saved. You gave me purpose and love and a reason to be better than I was." "You saved me too," Abigail replied, tears streaming down her face. "I was drowning when you found me and you threw me a lifeline. You gave me hope and help and love, so much love." They sat together holding hands as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink and purple. It was a beautiful evening, peaceful and perfect. "I am tired," Travis said quietly. "I think I am ready to rest." Abigail's heart clenched, understanding what he was really saying. "Not yet," she whispered. "Please, not yet." "I am not going anywhere tonight," Travis assured her, squeezing her hand. "I just wanted you to know, when the time comes I am ready. I have lived a full life, Abigail, a life beyond my wildest dreams, because of you." "Because of us," Abigail corrected, as she always did. "Because of us," Travis agreed with a small smile. They sat together until the stars came out, neither wanting to break the moment. Finally, as the night air grew cool, they went inside together and prepared for bed. That night, lying in the bed they had shared for nearly 4 decades, Travis pulled Abigail close and held her tight. "Thank you," he whispered into her hair, "for everything, for saying yes, for building this life with me, for loving me." "Thank you," Abigail whispered back, her voice breaking. "For walking into that chapel, for staying, for loving me back." "Always," Travis promised. "I will always love you, even beyond this life." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms as they had done thousands of times before. Travis passed away peacefully in his sleep a few weeks later, on a quiet November morning. He simply did not wake up, his body finally giving out after 7 decades of life. When Abigail found him, she knew immediately that he was gone, and her heart shattered even as she was grateful that he had gone peacefully, without pain or struggle. The funeral was held in the chapel where they had met, the same chapel where they had married and baptized their children and attended services for nearly 40 years. It seemed fitting that Travis's final journey would begin there. The chapel was packed with family and friends, all there to honor a man who had been respected and loved by everyone who knew him. Abigail sat in the front pew, the same pew where she had knelt in desperate prayer so long ago, surrounded by her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She listened to the eulogies, heard people speak about Travis's character, his work ethic, his love for his family. But all she could think about was that day when he had walked through the chapel door and changed her life forever. After the service, as they prepared to take Travis to his final resting place on a hill overlooking the ranch, Abigail stood alone in the chapel for a moment. She looked at the pew where it had all begun and felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. "Thank you," she whispered, not sure if she was talking to God or to Travis's spirit or to the universe in general. "Thank you for giving me 38 years with him. Thank you for answering my prayer that day with exactly what I needed." She felt a hand on her shoulder and turned to find her son Thomas standing behind her, his eyes red from crying. "Are you all right, Mother?" he asked. "I will be," Abigail replied, patting his hand. "Eventually. Your father gave me a beautiful life, Thomas. I have no regrets, only gratitude." The family laid Travis to rest on a hilltop with a view of the ranch he had helped build and the land he had loved. His headstone was simple, bearing his name and dates and a single line that Abigail had chosen. He prayed for love and found everything. In the months and years that followed, Abigail continued to live at the ranch, still active and involved with the family business despite her grief. She found comfort in being surrounded by her children and grandchildren, in the daily rhythms of ranch life, in the knowledge that Travis's legacy lived on in all of them. She often visited Travis's grave, sitting on a bench that Thomas had built there, talking to him as if he could hear her. She told him about the family, about the ranch, about her days. And sometimes she just sat in silence, feeling his presence, remembering their life together. One afternoon, about 2 years after Travis's death, Abigail made the journey into Sonora and to the chapel. She had not been back since the funeral, finding it too painful, but on this day she felt called to return. She entered the cool, quiet space and made her way to the front pew. She sat down in the same spot where she had sat on that desperate day over 40 years ago, and she bowed her head and prayed. "Thank you," she said aloud, her voice echoing softly in the empty space. "Thank you for Travis. Thank you for every moment we had together. Thank you for the family we built and the love we shared. And thank you for letting him go peacefully, without suffering. I miss him every single day, but I am grateful for the time we had. I asked for help that day so long ago, and you gave me more than I could have imagined. You gave me a partner, a love, a life worth living. Thank you." She sat in silence for a while, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. Then she heard the chapel door open and looked up to see a young woman entering, clearly distressed, tears streaming down her face. The woman moved toward the front pews, not noticing Abigail at first, and knelt down to pray, her voice breaking as she poured out her troubles. Abigail watched her for a moment, seeing herself as she had been all those years ago, desperate and alone and frightened. And she knew what she had to do. She rose quietly and moved to kneel beside the young woman, just as Travis had knelt beside her. The woman looked up, startled, her eyes wide. "I am sorry," Abigail said gently. "I could not help but hear your distress. Is there anything I can do to help you?" The young woman stared at her for a moment, then began to pour out her story. Her husband had died in an accident, leaving her alone with 2 small children and debts she could not pay. She did not know what to do or where to turn. Abigail listened carefully, her heart aching for this young woman's pain. And then, drawing on the wisdom and resources she had accumulated over a lifetime, she began to offer advice and practical help. She knew ranchers who were looking for workers, and she thought the woman's late husband's skills might be valuable to them. She knew women in town who could help with the children. She knew lawyers who might be able to help with the debts. By the time they finished talking, the young woman was no longer crying. Hope had begun to return to her eyes. "Why are you helping me?" the woman asked. "You do not even know me." Abigail smiled, remembering Travis asking her the same question all those years ago. "Because someone once helped me when I was in your position," she said. "And the help he gave me changed my entire life. Now it is my turn to pass that on." They left the chapel together, and Abigail spent the rest of the day helping the young woman connect with the people and resources she needed to get back on her feet. That evening, sitting on her porch watching the sunset, Abigail felt Travis's presence more strongly than she had since his death. She imagined him smiling at her, proud of the way she had helped someone in need, continuing the legacy of compassion and generosity that had defined their life together. "I understand now," she said softly, as if Travis could hear her. "I understand why you stayed that day, why you helped me even though you did not know me. Because when you see someone in need and you have the power to help, you do it. It is as simple as that, and it is as complicated as that." Abigail lived for another 8 years after Travis's death, remaining active and engaged with her family and community until the very end. She saw more grandchildren born, saw the ranch continue to prosper, saw her children become grandparents themselves. On a spring morning in 1920, Abigail passed away peacefully in her sleep at the age of 70. Her family buried her beside Travis on the hilltop overlooking the ranch, beneath a headstone that read, "She prayed for help and found love." The ranch continued to operate for generations, passed down through the Coleman family, a testament to the love and dedication of the man and woman who had built it. The story of how Travis and Abigail met, of the cowboy who found a woman praying in a chapel and knelt beside her to pray for her love, became family legend, told and retold to each new generation. And in the chapel in Sonora, California, where it had all begun, people still come to pray when they are troubled or lost or seeking guidance. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, you can almost feel the presence of two souls who found each other there, who built a life of love and purpose from a single moment of compassion and connection, proving that answered prayers come in the most unexpected ways.